behalf of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, we welcome you all for this exclusive webinar on servitization on the theme Infusing Services in Product, especially manufacturing, for organizations to ensure higher profitability. The session is addressed by Dr. R. Sugandh. He is the Dean, School of Management and School of Economics and Commerce, CMR University. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invitation to address at this webinar. The session is organized under the aegis of Manufacturing Expert Committee. The committee is led by Mr. Prakash, who is the Vice President Technical, Toyota Kirloskar Auto Parts, co-chaired by Mr. Shivaganesh. He is the Head Sales and Applications, FANUC India, and mentored by Dr. Devarajan, who is the Senior Vice President Production Engineering of TVS Motors. The session is moderated by Mr. Dinakar Krishnamurthy. We welcome you, sir, for this session. On behalf of the Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, we welcome you all for this session once again. And I would like to hand over the platform to Mr. Prakash. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, I think welcome to all the BCIC members and the non-members for this session. So we are very thankful to Dr. Sugandh for conducting this kind of first time in the BCIC history of BCIC, some kind of this kind of a session. Probably we are not so far conducted. So I think it will be a very useful session. And I'm also thankful to Mr. Dinakar Murthy, who is actually having a lot of experience in all kinds of fields, including service and product, and I think he has his own I would say mechanism to help companies to overcome various challenges. So with this brief introduction, I would like to hand it over to Mr. Dinakar Murthy, who will take you through this session and moderate this session as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prakash, and thank you so much, Rupa. First of all, welcome everyone for this wonderful session, which possibly is something not, what should I say, new, but it is some kind of saying old wine in a new bottle. The old wine always stays better. Therefore, whether the bottle is new or old is not important. The wine has to be old. I remember way back in the 80s or 90s, I would say, when we used to buy the Xerox machines in our factories. And later, they went on to not sell the machines, but they went on to lease out the machines so that we would buy only the copies. And the paper would be supplied by us and they would maintain the machine. And then that was, I think, possibly one of the first servitization which I have come across in my life. And later, the same thing got extended to printers, coffee machines, and multiple such products in our society. Today, we have Dr. Sugandh with us, who has done research on trying to find out how companies have been servitizing their products, or how companies have been migrating to a service platform instead of just a product platform as a portfolio in their offerings to the customers. And based on that research, he has come up with some hints and guidelines as to how one could move on towards the service offerings to the customers, which I'm sure will be in a big way the future of what we are seeing today, especially with IoT coming in and the possibility of monitoring the performance of the products in the field in the next coming years. I'm sure in BCIC, a lot of workshops and seminars have been conducted on Industry 4.0 and IoT. And today it's a different experience in trying to understand how we could leverage the technology of the day in trying to offer new value to the customers in way of service. So before I request Dr. Sugandh to tell us his learnings and research and his insights and recommendations, let me introduce him to you all. Dr. Sugandh is the Dean, School of Management and School of Economics and Commerce, CMR University, Bangalore, India. During his illustrious career of over 30 odd years, Dr. Sugant has held diverse responsibilities as a corporate leader, entrepreneur, and as an academic leader. Dr. Sugant has had spent nearly 15 years in his career in two leading IT organizations of India, Wipro and HCL. I'm sure all of us know these names. They resonate world-class excellence when we look at these companies. In these two organizations, Dr. Sugant held various responsibilities, including international logistics, commercial operations, compliance, sales, business development, as well as heading a profit center. He also had a stint as an entrepreneur for over 7 years, during which time he launched and managed startups in the area of technology and retail aggregation. His role in academics saw him serve with distinction as professor and head of the department in two leading institutions, Jain University, Bangalore, a leading private university in India, and SDM Institute of Management Development, Mysore, an ACBSP and EFMD accredited B school in India. Dr. Sugant now teaches international business marketing, and has published several papers in the area of services marketing. As part of the faculty exchange program, Dr. Sugant also has taught at Universidade de Montevideo, Uruguay, South America, where his course Doing Business in Emerging Markets was quite popular. I'm sure there are much more accolades to Dr. Sugant. Before I really keep on telling more from me, let us directly hear from him and then try to get as much wisdom as possible from his enormous experience and insights. Thank you so much, and over to you, Dr. Sugant.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dinakar, and thank you, Mr. Prakash. I think, you set the expectation very high, I think. You have been talking about the session is going to be wonderful and so on and so forth. I only hope that I live up to the expectations what you people have. A very good morning to all of you, and I would like to thank BCIC, especially the Manufacturing Expert Committee, for having invited me over for this particular session. So this session, in fact, as what Mr. Dinakar, while he was introducing me, he was talking about where I had a stint in some of the corporate organizations. And in fact, this interest started when I was there in corporate, which means that when I was there with HCL. HCL as an organization, if you look at it, they used to have two major group companies. One was HCL Technologies Limited, which used to be the software arm, typically where Infosys and TCS and Cognizant used to play. So in the same space was what HCL Technologies was. And there is another group company called as HCL Infosystems Limited. This company used to be the hardware arm, where they used to manufacture products. It was computers, it was laptops, it was, they used to deal with the projectors, they were the distributors for mobile phones. Primarily, hardware products was what they used to deal with. In fact, during my stint there, it was between 2007 to 2014. That was a time when this particular organization, the HCL Infosystems, they were transitioning from a product to a services organization. HCL Technologies has always been a services organization, whereas HCL Infosystems, they were transitioning from a product to a services organization. And that is where, I could get a ringside view of, what exactly was happening or was not happening, and so on and so forth. And it was a painful time also, because I think, they stopped manufacturing computers, they stopped manufacturing laptops. In fact, they were one of the largest distributors for Nokia phones in the country, and the Nokia sales also went down drastically during that period. And it was a transition from the product to services. And that is something, which started my interest in understanding the services perspective and how a product organization can transition to a services organization. And then when I joined in academics, I took it up as a research area. And of course, I mean, my doctoral thesis also was in the area of services marketing. But of course, specifically, I mean, I took up this area as the manufacturing companies, how they are transitioning into services. Of course, I mean, there were a lot of literature was there. There were a lot of research studies were there. And that, I mean, I could collate some additional information. And I also took up this as a research in the vicinity. In fact, at that point of time, I was with SDM Institute for Management Development in Mysore. So there I took up this research among the manufacturing companies in Mysore, what they are doing. And that also gave me some broader insights. So with that perspective is what I am here in front of you. And as in any session, obviously, I think, I mean, I look forward to learning from you as well. It would have been great if the session were to be a offline session. Of course, I mean, the learning will be much more better. But here, I think anyway, it is an online, but I would look forward to your contribution also, so that I think, I mean, I can also take away that and possibly make this much more robust, this particular field. So this, I hope you are able to see my PPT, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very much. I'm able to see it.
Sure, sure. So in today's session, I think, I mean, briefly, if you look at it, I would like to look at why services for a manufacturing company. I don't think, I mean, it is a no-brainer. I'm sure that every one of you know that because you are all industry experts and veterans. But still, I think, I mean, there are a couple of slides on that. And then, of course, I mean, the servitization evolution from product to service. And the service infusion continuum in what way the companies have been incorporating services. I mean, that is going to be the crux of this presentation. And of course, I mean, as we go along, there are a few use cases also, both, I think, I mean, from within the country and from outside the country. So that also we will discuss. And then after that, I mean, we will have possibly a Q&A wherein we'll be able to collectively answer. In fact, I mean, I don't know whether I'll have answers for all the questions. Yes, I think, I mean, some of them I'll try and answer, and some of them I can come back to you. So, I mean, that is how we will take up this session. So the first part, why services for a manufacturing company? So obviously, today, if you look at it, the trend is towards outsourcing, which means that, I mean, the companies would not like to take up things on their own. As what I think, I mean, Mr. Dinkar was talking about, one of the earliest days when Xerox has got into, converting their product into a service, wherein instead of paying for a Xerox machine, you pay per copy is what you pay. And the toner is on them, and the paper is on them, and the manpower is on them. So, I mean, that is a kind of, I mean, where at the minimum level, what we are looking at it. And of course, I mean, it has got into a much more higher level of asset optimization by the customers. They don't want to invest on all the assets. I mean, whatever is the core competence, let me focus on that. Fine, I'm into manufacturing. Okay, I mean, let me focus on manufacturing. I will not be bothered about my IT assets. I will not be bothered about my, power and energy assets. So everything, I mean, I will try to outsource it. So this is one trend which has been happening around. And the second is obviously, there is a certain amount of saturation of an installed base also. I can sell only so much. Especially, I mean, if I am a heavy equipment seller. In fact, I mean, primarily, if you look at it, most of these examples will be taken from the B2B context. If I am a heavy equipment maker, or I am into selling a heavy machinery equipments, maybe a textile machinery, if I am going to sell, or maybe I am selling a printing machinery. So which means that there is only so much you can sell. Of course, I think, I mean, you cannot look at possibly like how an IT industry is looking at year-on-year growth of about 8%, 10%, 12%. Of course, I mean, it was at one point of time 35, 40%, but now it has come down to at least about 8 to 10% year-on-year. But the same growth may not happen in case of a heavy equipment manufacturer. So there is only certain amount of installed base. So obviously, you need to look at how you can derive more revenue from the same customer, how you can take more share of customers' wallet. Assuming that, I mean, he is not going to buy from you again and again, because yes, I think there is certain amount of saturation and he has already got those equipments. The third is, if you look at it, it is more of a commoditization. So which means that more and more products are looking like A is equal to B is equal to C is equal to D. It is more prominent in a consumer product. If you look at it, there is nothing much of difference between different products. At one point of time, if you look at it, maybe you take a two-wheeler or a car. Yes, I think, I mean, there are too many, I mean, too limited brands were there. And of course, I mean, there were a lot of differences also was there. At one point of time, we had possibly an Ambassador or a Premier or a Maruti 800. Only these three were there. Of course, I mean, there were a lot of product differentiation was there. Whereas today, in commoditization, which means that all the products look similar. I think, I mean, everybody talks about the similar features and products and things like that. And this is something which will be applicable even for a low-cost product. Maybe if you are looking at a nuts and bolts, or if you are looking at a component, or if you are looking at plastic components. I mean, these are more of a commoditization wherein we will not be able to really make much of a differentiation. So that is another challenge. I mean, why the product-centric companies are looking at service for growth. And the leaders also look at services for financial growth, because obviously, I mean, products are something which are susceptible to the economical cycle. So it goes ups and downs. Whereas, I mean, if you are looking at deriving revenue from services, some amount of stability it provides. So which means that it may not really be that much susceptible to the ups and downs of the business cycle. And it will also help a greater, in a great extent, to differentiate your product. And of course, I mean, as we said, can we take the increased share of the customer's wallet? And the most importantly, because of this differentiation, maybe with the product, I may not be able to get that kind of a customer satisfaction. Whereas when you are looking at the services, I'll be able to create that differentiator, and possibly I can look at how I can work towards more of a customer satisfaction. So these are some of the reasons, if you look at it, how the services are changing. A couple of examples, if you look at it, for example, this is one, maybe a small car like a Maruti Alto, if you look at it. I mean, I'm talking about an ex-showroom price of around 3.5 lakhs. If you look at it, it very clearly shows that the net margin, or for a dealer, if you look at it, he will derive more margin from the services rather than from the car, or from the purchase of, or from selling the car as it is. So his margins either, I mean, as when he sells initially, if you look at it from the product, if you look at it compared to that over a period of about, 5 years, if he looks at in terms of services, in terms of annual insurance renewal, in terms of any body shop renewal, in terms of any resale value, I mean, at that point of time, if collectively, if you look at it, he earns more revenue through service rather than selling you the car. And it may not be only for Maruti. I mean, even if you look at the research has shown in most of these heavy equipment, you name it, in terms of, automotive or a locomotive or an elevator or an earth moving equipment. If you look at it, it is, the research has shown that the company will be able to earn at least about 36 times more profit in services than in selling the equipment as it is. And typically in a capital equipment, if you look at it, in terms of the life cycle cost, only about 50% is actually the cost of the equipment. Remaining 50% comes from the support, the services, the maintenance, and so on and so forth. In fact, I mean, the GE Industrial's earnings, if you look at it, at least about 3/4 of their earnings, when we talk about earnings, we are talking about their profit, is coming from services. In fact, I mean, all the company which you know very well, if you look at it, a company like Apple, if you see the services part, wherein they are talking about the digital content and the streaming services and the Apple Care licensing, maps, and so on and so forth. If you look at it, there's a last quarter earning. If you see, about 18 billion has come from there out of a total sales of about 83 billion, which means that it is roughly, possibly about 20% of the sales is coming from services. Now, if you look at their gross margin, if you look at it, in gross margin, if you see, out of this, the cost of services is only about 5 billion, which means that it is possibly somewhere around 20-25% is the cost of sale. Out of 18 billion sales, your cost of sales is just about 5 billion is what is coming, somewhere around 25%. So which means that straight away your gross margin from services is 75% your gross margin. Whereas compared to that, if you look at in product, out of 65 billion, I mean, your cost of sale is about 42 billion. So in your total gross margin of about 35 billion is what you are looking at. About 40% of the gross margin comes from services alone. Though the contribution of services to sales is only 20%. Whereas your contribution of gross margin of services to the total gross margin of the company, if you look at it, it is about 40%. So that is where the services scores and how the company can look at services to leverage their profit margins. So the product as a service is something, I mean, which is transforming. In fact, International Data Corporation, if you look at it, they predicted that 40% of top 100 discrete manufacturers and top 100 process manufacturers, if you look at it, I mean, they'll be providing the product as a service platform. I mean, like the simplest example is that of the Xerox machine, what Mr. Dinkar was talking about. So it is something like that. I mean, so that is where the future is heading. The product is going to get into a service scape. And that is what is defined as the servitization, which means that the trend by the manufacturing firms to extend the scope of their product offerings into services. So this is going to be the future, and this is going to be the key for survival and differentiation of a company from the other organization. And of course, I think, I mean, as we said, higher level services and solutions are typically more difficult to copy. The product is much more easier to copy because, I mean, you can always reverse engineer and you can come up with a similar product. But the services, if you look at it, it is pretty much difficult to copy by the rivals because services comes from, it is not a tangible one. It is totally intangible, and it is more to do with the organizational ecosystem rather than any physical product. And if you look at it, the evolution of services, if you see, it comes from, in terms of the value prop, if you look at it in a traditional product, we are focusing on providing the high quality product. Okay, that is more from the product perspective. Whereas the next level, if you look at it, yes, we help improve the product efficiency and effectiveness. So possibly, I mean, what we call simply as a value-added services. And at the end of this, I mean, we call it as a solutions, which means that can we look at making the customer successful, which means that you are tightly coupled with the customer's success and you are working very closely with them. So typically, I think, I mean, the aero engine is a very good example wherein you make better and better aero engines is what you make. You make it much more fuel efficient, you make it much more powerful, you make it, the mean time between failure, I mean, you keep increasing it. So that is something, I mean, you look at a high quality product. So as a value added services, okay, I mean, you can look at preventing the breakdown, which means that, I mean, you do a preventive maintenance, you ensure that the jet engines are not, it is not breaking down, there is no downtime is there. So that will be the next level. Whereas at the solution level, if you look at it, I mean, we look at optimizing the flying cost, which means that today, I think aero engines, I mean, be it a Pratt & Whitney or be it a GE, if you look at it, I mean, they charge the customers on a per kilometer run basis or per 1,000 kilometer run basis. So which means that you don't pay me for the cost of the aero engine, but you pay me for the uptime. You pay me for the kilometers run. So which means that, I mean, I need to look at how I can optimize the cost, right? I mean, which means that it is not only the mean time between failure, but it is also talking about the fuel consumption. It is primarily, I mean, it is a solution is what you are looking at. Even a typical product like a forklift truck also, if you look at it, I mean, you can look at possibly maintain the truck, but at the same time, can you improve the life cycle of the truck? If it means that, I mean, if it is going to be 5 years, can you make it as 8 years? Can you make it as 10 years? So that is something, I mean, which you are looking at as increasing you are getting into more of a solution centric. A small product like possibly a nuts and bolts is something, I mean, where instead of giving the customer, I mean, which means that can you ensure that the product is delivered just in time, and can you ensure that the handling cost of the customer is avoided? So you take care of those kind of a C-class components and things like that. So that is where I think, I mean, the solutions comes into play. Now, given this background, we move from the product to a service to a solution to an experience is what we generally move. Now, it is in this context is what we are talking about this service infusion continuum. In fact, this model talks about how the services can be infused into the product in a continuum, which means that what is at the basic level and what is at the highest level is what we are looking at. At the first level of services is what is called as an entitlement services. So this is a service which the customer is entitled to, which means that, I mean, he doesn't pay for it. It is like, I mean, it is free as part of the product. There's a standard service level agreement is there. It can be the warranties, it can be the break fix, it can be the online support or the routine maintenance, installation. All these are something, I mean, which are, I mean, the customer is looking for it, and it comes along as a package. So you cannot monetize it. So this comes as an entitlement. I mean, the warranty, what you provide, I mean, typically a company like any product comes with a warranty. Either it can be a generator, or it can be a computer, or it can be a two-wheeler, I mean, in the consumer space. So it comes with a warranty. So this is something which is at the basic level of service. So no monetization. It is like, I mean, already the services, the cost has been already built in, and the customer is having that as a standard along with the product. At the next level is what we call it as a value added service. So now this goes one step beyond the basic product entitlement. So this is ancillary to the core product. It is not something, I mean, which is totally different from the product. It is the core product is what you are looking at. So wherein you talk about typically, if you look at it, in most of the times it is offered at a modest price. Either it can be an extended warranty, or it can be a financing, or it can be an insurance, or it can be some credit you might give. So these are some things, I mean, which you give it as a value added services, which is not your regular entitlement, but it is something which is given as an additional for which the company is going to monetize it. In fact, if you look at it, most of the companies, I mean, I have seen in the B2B space, they have been providing certain value added services, but it is not getting monetized. You might provide certain additional benefits, you might provide certain additional services, but that you take it as a customer service and it is not monetized. But there are, I mean, organizations where they would look at monetizing it for, I mean, for additional things. So either these are these extended warranty services, or for that roadside assistance and so on and so forth. So how you can monetize it with the, I mean, the value added services. So at the next level of service is where we have this asset management services. So wherein you take care of, or you take responsibility for maintaining, deploying, modernizing and optimizing the usage of the asset category. Maybe, yes, I think, I mean, you are a machine tool manufacturer. So can you take care of the entire maintenance of all the machine tools in the customer's factory, irrespective of whether it is manufactured by you or by others. So it is something, it is more of, you take responsibility for the entire maintenance, deploying, modernizing, optimizing, and so on and so forth. So here, obviously, the services are rendered, are sold and billed separately. Which means that this definitely doesn't come as part of your product, because it is neither an entitlement services nor it is a value added services, but this is something which is a totally different services, because by virtue of your expertise in that particular product category, you are taking care of the total maintenance or the logistics or the inventory, whatever you name it. So it is the entire asset management is something, which is being taken care of by you. So where I think, again, companies like IBM does it, companies like SKF does it, in the bearing industry, companies like HCL does it. They have that, the entire assets, irrespective of whether the product is manufactured by them or by their competitor, you take care of, it can be the computers, it can be the the software, it can be the networking equipment, it can be the mobile devices, whatever the customer is having, the entire assets are managed by the organization. At the next level, if you look at it, this is something, what we call it as a supplementary services, wherein you have understood the customer's unmet needs and aspirations. You have certain expertise. Now, based on this expertise, you are offering certain services to the customer. So now this can be like, for example, how the offers the services. Typically, if you look at, they are into more of a networking related, and they are trying to offer certain technical support services, or maybe a company like, for example, if you are looking at an organization who has, for example, if they are very strong on implementing ERP for manufacturing companies, a TVS group. What they have done is, they have hived it up as a separate business, and they are offering ERP for manufacturing companies as a service. No, are they manufacturing ERP? No. Are they into ERP implementation? No. But I think, over a period of time, yes, they have gained that expertise, and they have understood that, okay, this is what may be required for my customer. So let me offer it as a separate services. So that can be another kind of services, what we call it as a supplementary services is what we are calling. At the next level, we have Rupa, can you please play that cat video, please?
Give me a minute.
Yes, please.
No matter what kind of work you do, or how many machines you run, you're always looking for ways to improve. And now, Cat Connect is helping you take control of your job site. With innovations in equipment, technologies, and dealer services to give your business the competitive edge. Whether you want to be more productive, make smarter decisions, or improve your bottom line, your Cat dealer can help you match the right technologies and services for your equipment, so you can achieve the success you want. Cat Connect gives you the ability to choose just one solution to meet your budget, or connect multiple solutions to help monitor, manage, and enhance your operations. Equipment management. Increase uptime and reduce operating costs. Monitoring machine health and reducing fuel consumption are just two of the ways equipment management solutions help you uncover the value you want. Productivity. Monitor production and manage job site efficiency. Optimizing payload, cycle times, and reducing grading and compaction costs help you gain the efficiency you want to complete your jobs faster and with less rework. Safety. Enhance job site awareness to keep your people and equipment safe. Cameras, object and proximity detection and reporting tools give you the visibility you want to protect your most valuable assets. Sustainability. Reduce environmental impact and simplify compliance reporting. By monitoring fuel burn and managing resource consumption, you not only improve the efficiency of your job site, you gain the integrity you want by doing your part to sustain our world. Whatever your next job site brings, CAT Connect can help you take control of your job site and your bottom line. Contact your CAT dealer today to start making smart use of technology and services to achieve the success you want. Together, we're built to put your business out front and keep it there.
Thanks, Rupa. Thank you. So this is an example of that other kind of service, what we are talking about, which is nothing but the smart services, wherein we are looking at the company embedding the sensors into the product and monitoring them remotely. And possibly, you are looking at a preemptive and proactive, the maintenance services, or monitoring the performance in terms of the fuel consumption, or it can be in terms of the uptime. So it is like, how you are using the sensors to detect that. And this is something, which of late, even Indian companies also have got into it. Even including Mahindras are now looking at using the smart sensors even for their tractors. So it is, which can give them, of course, in our regular cars, I think it is already there, right? We have the connected cars are there, and we'll be able to monitor, where the cars are and what is the location and things like that. It is already there. But in the equipment, we can do that, and we can do a lot of data collection we'll be able to do. And this is something, which is coming up in a big way, how you can embed the sensors onto the equipment. And based on that, can we look at, delivering the services, delivering the product as a service. So this, it has been happening in Aero Engine, where we are able to, the sensors are embedded onto the Aero Engine, so we'll be able to exactly know what is the failure point is going to be, or where exactly it is flying, or how much distance it has flown, or how much fuel it has consumed. The same way in heavy equipment also, this is something which has been there. And of course, in machine tools and other equipment, the IoT is what I think Mr. Dinkar was talking about. So this, the sensors are getting embedded into almost all the equipment that is there. And now using it to not only monitor, but also can we monetize those services is something which we look at as the smart services. At the next level of service, if you look at it, is something which Mr. Dinkar was talking about, one example of Xerox. In fact, Xerox, it has got into the next iteration. The first iteration is something, where we looked at, you provide the equipment, and then you looked at the paper, the cost of paper, the toner, everything is being taken care of by the company, and you pay per copy basis. Whereas today, if you look at it, Xerox has gone into the next level. Rupa, can you play that other video, please?
Work. It doesn't wait until you get to the office. It happens anywhere, anytime. If the demands of work are always with you, shouldn't your documents be as well? There are devices and apps to help you work efficiently, but no one app does it all. Instead, you struggle to create your own formula for managing mountains of information. What if you could unite all your devices, different applications, different files, and file formats wherever you are? Let's face it, there's a reason pen and paper still exist. There's no learning curve, no need to sync them. They're portable. You can easily annotate, read, or share. The downside of paper? Well, all that paper. Xerox Digital Alternatives. All your information in one place, whether it started out as digital or as paper. Mark up documents, fill out and sign forms, and easily manage and share information. Digital Alternatives treats all files the same. Once it's in Digital Alternatives, everyone can interact with it in a consistent way and see each other's annotations, all from a single user interface. Talk about working smarter. Digital Alternatives remembers the last page you read, even if you change devices or locations. And because being connected isn't always realistic, these features work even when you're not on the network. Other apps don't do that. We believe great ideas should be shared. That's why Digital Alternatives integrates with your global directory and calendar, making it simple to share a document with coworkers or people in a meeting, whether they're down the hall or across the globe. Xerox Digital Alternatives, making work simpler so you can work smarter and have more time for what matters most.
Thanks, Rupa. So this typically, if you look at it, what the company has done is, I think they are got into the entire document management, which means that it kills their core business. Which means that, I mean, originally, if you look at it, they were into more of the manufacturing the photocopiers, whereas now you are talking about the entire document management, which is going to happen virtually, which means that, I mean, you are trying to totally transform yourself from a product to a services organization. And this kind of services is what we call it as a managed services, where you manage the entire thing end to end is what you are looking at. Now, if you look at it, it may be slightly similar to that asset management. The asset management also you are talking about, you are managing the entire ecosystem of the organization. Whereas the managed services also we are talking about the entire ecosystem. I mean, it can be in terms of document, it can be in terms of IT, it can be in terms of energy related equipments, it can be in terms of, I mean, manufacturing related equipments. I mean, you can talk about it, I mean, which means that you are talking about the entire day-to-day management of the equipments. Not the operations, but the equipment management. I mean, if you look at it, this is slightly different from the asset management because here it is much more strategic in the sense that the companies are, I mean, if you are looking at the company associates with the customer at much more a strategic level, which means that even if if the customer is planning to expand the operations, possibly the managed services provider will be able to suggest, will be able to consult and provide the appropriate solution. So whereas in asset management, it becomes purely as a maintenance contract kind of thing, whereas in managed services, it goes one level above and it is more of a strategic partnership is what happens at the managed services level. At the same thing, I mean, for example, GE also does it, the entire patient monitoring system. If you look at it, I mean, they have that total comprehensive portfolio of patient monitoring systems. So how it will be totally managed by, it can be a complex network of equipments. So the entire thing will be managed by GE. The same way, I mean, they call it as an installed base systems also, wherein they take care of the entire optimized, I mean, what are the different clinical activities, or it can be a diagnostic activity, the entire diagnostic network, whether everything will be taken care of by GE. So that is something, I mean, with the GE has been doing. At the next level is that professional consulting services and solutions, wherein, I mean, you are looking at more of an advisory kind of thing is what we are talking about. So where you have certain expertise, I mean, something similar to that supplementary services. Yes, there may be some overlap between that and this, but supplementary is something which is more aligned to that. Here we are trying to totally hive it off as a separate unit and then trying to provide the services kind of thing is what you do as an advisory to the companies. In fact, I think Toyota is something, I mean, which is a good example for that. GE Healthcare, I mean, they are also providing that. So Toyota also provides the Toyota production system, which means that, I mean, they consult companies on the best practices in manufacturing, best practices in production, best practices in, operations management. The same way, if you look at Mahindra, what they have done, I think, I mean, they are primarily, yes, they are a equipment or a truck or a tractor manufacturer and of late SUV manufacturer also. Now, I think, I mean, they are also providing consulting services to companies. They have hived off as a separate business, Mahindra Logistics. And through this, they are also providing the transportation solution. If you look at their website, there is a use case related to a leading multinational IT company. They are providing the total transportation solution of how they can maintain their the entire the transportation network is what they are providing. So this comes in the way of an advisory services is what it comes. And at the highest end, if you look at it, is more like an integrated product services solution, which means that it is supposed to be the most complex type of offering. You need to understand the customer's unique requirements, and then you will have to customize, integrate, deploy, which means that it is end-to-end kind of thing is what you are doing. The classic example is that of IBM with Airtel. So which means that IBM Airtel partnership is worth about 500 crores per year. So which means that the entire end to end, if you look at Airtel takes care of only possibly coming up with a product and marketing. The other part of it, everything is outsourced. So IBM takes care of their billing system, IBM takes care of their call center, IBM takes care of the maintenance of IT infrastructure. IBM takes care of their technology backbone. And of course, I mean, networking, which means that the hardcore towers and networking, that has been outsourced to other companies. You have Indus Towers are there, you have Ericsson, Nokia Ericsson is there, so that is outsourced. Whereas here, if you look at their entire call center, their customer service, their billing system, the entire thing, I mean, is managed by IBM. So which means that the Airtel doesn't get into the picture at all, whether IBM is installing one server or 10 servers or 1,000 servers, or IBM is installing how many computers, what kind of networking they are using, how many people they are employing, everything is left to IBM. So Airtel pays them on the X number of X million customers per year. Okay, I mean, this is the transaction which they are going to handle. So this is at the highest level where we call it as an integrated product service solutions. Now these are the different services. I mean, if you look at it, starting from the basics, from entitlement to value added to asset management to supplementary to smart to manage. So the model talks about how the companies can move from one level to another. So it is not that, I mean, all the companies will be able to move. Again, it depends on the product, what the companies are manufacturing. So obviously, I think, I mean, the smart services may not be applicable for all the organizations. So that again depends on organization to organization, where you can move from entitlement to value added to asset management. So at least that first three levels, maybe a value added and asset management and a supplementary services is something which everybody can offer. Maybe at the higher level, if you look at it, yes, I think, I mean, you need to, if it is a smart service, obviously it has to be with an equipment and so on and so forth. And the same way the managed services and advisory services also is something, I mean, which most of the companies will be able to offer because they are experts in their own field. So typically, if you look at it, I mean, this is how the model says how it moves over a period of time, but it doesn't mean that it has to move only in the linear fashion. You can have your services, I mean, your entitlement or a value-added services, and then you will be able to provide certain advisory services also. So a few use cases, I mean, if you look at it, one example is which we can look at is basically a product which is more of a commodity. Out and out a commodity kind of product is basically the tires. The tires is out and out, it is like a commodity kind of product. There is no technology is involved. There is no high technology. There is nothing is there. Now here again, if you look at it, there are companies, for example, I mean, this talks about this MRF's tire drone. Wherein, I mean, they do this wheel alignment and they look at removal and refitment of tires. They do the, I mean, possibly wheel balancing, and so those kind of activities is what they do. Now, this falls typically under your value-added services. Just tires, where we are talking about a value-added services. The same thing, I mean, a tire, for example, a company like JK Tyre, they have something called as a fleet management program. Now, in this case, they look at how you can manage the entire tire solutions. They do it with VRL. VRL, as you know, is one of the, I mean, largest transport operators. They have more than about 6,000 plus vehicles are there, buses and trucks and so on and so forth. So they are largest fleet management operators in India. So JK Tyres works very closely with them, and they have a fleet in charge, multiple fleet in charge actually, where they'll be able to look at what are the best tire care maintenance practices, when the tire has to be rebuttoned, and what kind of, I mean, they also get involved in the driver training, so that I think, I mean, the driver will be able to drive in such a way that the tires can be maintained properly. And they also maintain the tire data records to see that how many kilometers each tire has run, and then when it has to be changed, how you, I mean, possibly rotate the tires. So the entire thing is being taken care of by the JK Tyres person who is going to be there in the customer location. So this comes under the typical asset management kind of thing. One level above, if you look at it, again, another company, yet another tire company, Bridgestone. Of course, I mean, they don't do it here in India. It is like, I mean, where they again embed the sensors onto the tires. And by that, they'll be able to measure the health of the tire, which means that, I mean, you'll be able to look at obviously the inflation, the tire inflation, the air pressure is something which you can easily measure. That has come even in cars, it is already there. So you'll be able to measure that. So now this, what they do using this, I mean, they'll be able to look at how many kilometers the tires have run, and what is the worn out percentage, and what is the driver's driving habit. They'll be able to measure by using these sensors. So this is something, I mean, which is at the next level for the same tire. Yes, I think, I mean, they have done it. And this comes at as a smart services is what they have incorporated. At the next level, if you look at it, I mean, this is the Michelin. The Michelin as an organization, if you look at it, I mean, they are again one of the largest tire manufacturers. And in Europe, they have started, implementing it. Whether it is successful or not is a big question. So they came up with these solutions called as an FE fuel. So they tie up with the fleet owners, and then they tell the fleet owner that don't pay me per tire cost. You pay me on per kilometer basis. So which means that, I mean, they have to start with, they have a fuel analyst who will be there in the Michelin on site, and they will be running the diagnostics initially before they sign up, and they will find out, I mean, how much is the consumption and what is the usage and things like that. And they will look at evaluate the tire life. And then, I mean, they will also provide training for the drivers. They will also implement the telematic solutions on the trucks. The telematics as in the same, that sensors, embedding and so on and so forth is what they'll be doing. And then, I mean, they look at, I mean, how much is the current fuel consumption, and they come up and say that, okay, I mean, how much improvement they can provide. And they set up the dashboard, the digital tools and everything, they set it up. And they say that, yes, I think, I mean, they get into the run mode and they tell the company that, yes, I think, I mean, you are a fleet operator. You don't pay me per tire, you pay me per kilometer run. Which means that, I mean, they are trying to optimize, which means that if the tire wear and tear is high, possibly the company will buy more tires. But here they are trying to ensure that the wear and tear is less. So that I think, I mean, you are going to charge the customer on a per kilometer basis is what you are going to charge. So this is, I mean, something which they try to implement it. Of course, I think, I mean, the Michelin has been trying to do it for they started the exercise somewhere in 2007 is when they started. Much iterations and things like that. I mean, they have been trying to iterate multiple things and finally they came up with this sometime around 2013-14 is when they came up with this and they implemented it. But unfortunately, I think, I mean, post implementation, if you look at it, the fuel prices fell drastically. That is after 2014, if you look at it, between 2014 and 2019, the fuel prices was so low. From somewhere around $80 to $100, it came down to around $35. So which means that the companies were not really bothered about that much of a fuel consumption and things like that. And now, anyway, I mean, the companies are in Europe, they are looking at moving to EVs. So given that, I think, I mean, this solution is not really seen, that kind of a success is something which has not really seen. But obviously, I think there is one solution which they try to do it, a very comprehensive solution of incorporating the services into a commodity like product of tires. So this is one simple thing, I mean, which as I told you, we did one small study of different companies in Mysore, wherein we looked at the companies which are, I mean, all are into the B2B space. If you look at it, what kind of services, I mean, they were providing. If you look at most of them were into that entitlement services because they were providing warranty, they were providing maintenance and the call center services and things like that. And some companies like JK Tire and all, they were providing certain value-added services, wherein the tire repairs, the inflation pressure check and tire service they were providing, and the fleet management also they were providing. And some companies we could see, for example, that Triveni Engineering is one company where they were providing certain design services, where anyway they were using the design for their internal purpose. So can they also provide the same design services for external customer? And a company like Clover Lubrication, I mean, they were also trying to provide certain supplementary services as well as advisory services on choosing the lubricants and so on and so forth is what they were providing. So primarily, if you look at it, I mean, if I were to map what all the companies, what kind of services if they provide, most of the companies were into that entitlement services and somewhere into that supplementary services and of course advisory services and so on and so forth. So this is what I thought I will share with you. Maybe I think, I mean, if we can have some questions, let us see how we can address them.
So first of all, thanks a lot, Dr. Sugant, for such a wonderful, what should I say, inspiring talk on what way can services be used, leveraged for growth in industry. So I felt I would use the word taxonomy. You described the taxonomy of services in product companies,
Right.
which was very, very exciting. So I have some ideas. I'll talk about that in the end, but let us now start with some of the questions. A couple of them from Prakash. First is, can maintenance function in manufacturing be completely considered under servitization? And what are the challenges and what would be the merit and demerit of such propositions is what Prakash asks.
Right. Yes, I think, I mean, maintenance is absolutely, it is a starting point. Maintenance, if you are trying to provide maintenance as a service to others, which means that it will be coming under the value-added services, and if you are also monetizing it. It is the starting point for services. Absolutely, you are right. Yes. It can, I mean, it is not a total servitization. Servitization is a broader word which is being used. Of course, I think, I mean, that is something, I mean, which if the later day the management scientists, if you look at it, I mean, they look at different services and how it can be incorporated into services. I mean, the servitization is a much broader word, so you cannot really call it as a servitization, but yes, it is definitely infusing services in a manufacturing organization. Services is part of that. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and Prakash and only and Dr. Sugandh, if I may add, in Bosch, we used to do that in a big way,
Right.
but mainly for the vendors. We didn't go
Right.
to the third parties. For the vendors, we would use our expertise in within the organization to help them with their machines, because many of the machines were Bosch machines which were outsourced to the vendors, and many of them had bought the machine second hand, and they would not be in a position to recondition that. So that services we were providing, and
I
monetizing
think,
to
Mr.
some
Venkata,
extent
you
was
made
being
a right
done.
point. In fact, I mean, that is a right approach. In fact, most of the companies, what they do, first they look at providing the service either to their vendors or to their customers. I mean, typically a company like Mahindra, if you look at it, they have this Mahindra Logistics or even TVS. TVS were not originally into logistics. They were into manufacturing, but they started these logistics to provide services for their customers. And then after that, I mean, you hive it off as a separate business unit and then you provide that services to others as well. So that is a very, I mean, valid approach which the companies normally take.
And the next question, what Prakash has, I think you can really derive some business out of that, Dr. Sugandh. He says on similar lines, is it possible, lines of mobile portability? Okay.
Right.
The question is, can service providers of various products come together to offer integrated services, to offer faster, quicker, and cheaper solutions, and some kind of a aggregation platform for service providers?
Absolutely. See, I think, I mean, it is like today he used the right word, that cooperation. And it is, I mean, it is no more a choice. I think, I mean, it is an imperative, is what I feel. Because I think the way the world is moving, if you don't get into these kind of, I mean, collaborative effort with your own competition and offer complementary services, which means that, I mean, you will not be there. I mean, somebody else will come and offer it. I mean, that is where if you look at, I mean, that is a one important thing in services. For example, I'll show you one small use case of, let me just share this SKF's website. I would just like to share that SKF's website. See, SKF is one organization. If you look at it, they have incorporated the services big time. See, typically, if you look at it, one of the services, if you see, they call it as is SKF Reckoned Oil. So this service is essentially what they are doing is, I mean, they are helping the customers to recycle the lubricants, which means that, I mean, lubricants are an essential part of any bearing system, right? I think, I mean, the life of the bearing is going to be dependent on how good the lubricant is. So which means that if the lubricant is bad, which means that the bearing life is going to be less, and if the bearing life is going to be less, the customer is going to buy more bearing. So that is a short-term view, which means that, I mean, forget about it. Okay, let the customer buy more bearing, so I'll be happy about it. Whereas what they are doing is they are providing a lubricant services, which means that they say that, okay, fine, I mean, you give me that used lubricant oil, let me filter it out, and then I will give it back to you in a usable condition again. So as a result, the life of the bearing is going to be increasing, right? So which means that, I mean, what essentially you are doing, you are going contra to your view, which means that instead of I trying to sell more of my product, what you are trying to do is you are trying to sell less of my product. But at the same time, you are opening up another revenue stream where you are trying to provide a service in the area of lubricant oil. So it is, I mean, if you look at the services which are being offered by them, they are into everything. For example, this rotating equipment performance. I mean, they don't manufacture any rotating equipment. They don't manufacture turbines or motors or generators. Nothing. They don't do anything. But at the same time, I mean, they look at how the performance can be bettered. How they can, I mean, that is another service which they offer. a classic case of that asset management and the managed services model coming into play. And again, if you look at turning the big data into actions, there we are talking about the smart services, where there are, you have the sensors are embedded and how you can incorporate it and you'll be able to get the real-time data. So typically, if you look at it, they are there everywhere. They are there into application engineering, into advisory services, into asset management services, into managed services, into smart services. At the more basic level, they provide the training for the customers. It is more of a value-added services. So they are there everywhere. It is there. So it is a classic case where I think, in services, it has to happen. Which means that you need to look at work with other companies, the complementary service providers, and then how you can provide it as a larger solution to the customer. You said it absolutely right.
Yeah, very interesting perspective. And also what SKF is doing seems quite exciting. And there, the only thing which I wanted to add on was in many of the cases within Bosch, where I've been more exposed to in either contributing or deciding on such opportunities. Many of these services, moment we wanted to provide it as a service, that in some way became the main focus, so that the business would start, the core business would start subsidizing for the service business to grow. That's a little dangerous one. So from that perspective, there is the next question, Mr. Ashok from TCAP. He asks, what are your views on moving from core business to non-core small business, still keeping core business as an opportunity to enhance profit? And that is contradicting to what I said. So I would like you to share your views on both the points.
Right. Yes, I think, see, it is quite challenging. In fact, again, I would like to go back. Maybe if you look at this is, the experience, if you look at it, how the company, HCL Infosystems, the company where I was part of, right? How the company has moved between June 2010 to June 2014, when they were transforming from a product organization to a services organization. They were, at one point of time, if you look at it, their total turnover was around 11,859 crore. And then as they made this transition. The sales fell from 11,859 to possibly 5,610. And the PBT fell from 357 crore to possibly a loss of about 77.08 crore. So it is something, which it's a very valid question. Can we totally move away from? So obviously, yes, I think, you cannot totally move away from that. In fact, in this particular case, okay, in hindsight, the company totally moved away from. Of course, there are a lot of what I would say, it is a lot of environmental reasons were also contributing to that. That apart, if you look at it, they decided to move totally. They stopped everything. They said that no hardware business, nothing. You wanted to move, which means that it not only your sales came down, but even your profitability also fell drastically. And ideally, if you look at it, yes, I think you should start small, but at the same time, unless at least about 20 to 30% of your revenue is coming from services, you may not be able to scale it up also. So it is not that your services are going to be totally replacing the product. That may be true for a company like IBM. And IBM is an organization, a very successful case study for total transformation from a product to services. But that cannot be done by all the organizations. But generally, based on the past studies, it says that if you have to be profitable, at least somewhere around the minimum 10% to 30% of your revenue has to come from services. Otherwise, I think, it doesn't really, make sense for that. And total transformation is very difficult to make.
Yeah, and I have one suggestion, Dr. Sugant, based on what question Ashok had asked. See, he is the one who is championing what is called as Kaizen e-library in our chapter.
Great.
Okay, basic idea was to really prepare some kind of e-library of all possible Kaizen. Kaizen you are aware of, right? It's
Yes.
continuous improvement.
Right.
So all such possibilities which have been implemented in companies. My question is, see, you showed about the continuum. I called it taxonomy. Various possibilities of servitization. Is
Right.
it possible for you to prepare some kind of a master document? I can definitely contribute. Others who are interested also can contribute to that. To define for each of those, under each of those categories, what are the possibilities of servitization, and what are the pros and cons of each of those possibilities?
Right.
Because there are some members in our organization who are product companies, and there are many more members who are mainly contract manufacturing companies.
Right.
And so for the contract manufacturing companies, servitization may be a little different than for a product company.
Correct.
So if you can list out those topics, and against each topic, think, and from your research and from your wisdom, what
Right.
options do we have in servitization? In case there is an example, we quote an example. Otherwise, talk about pros and cons. Something like that, could it be put together so that it will be benefit for all our members?
Can. We can do that. Not a
Okay.
problem.
Okay, thank you so much. So then we have got one more question coming up from Mr. Guru Murthy. There is a thin line of difference in servitization and outsourcing is what he says. For instance, Ola, Uber, you call it servitization is a question mark. Is it servitization? He understands that Ola and Uber are servitization. Servitization will become order of the day for most business houses, either to receive or they would extend, is what his statement is. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, the servitization is where we are talking about a product company incorporating the services. Ola and Uber, I mean, yes, I think if you are looking at, they are pure play services organization. Yes, I think, I mean, there is a product is involved, either it can be a car or an auto or something like that is involved, but it is a pure play services organization technically. So I mean, the servitization may not be applicable out there is what I feel.
Okay. And what is your view on servitization in contract manufacturing companies, where they either build to spec or build to design?
See, the contract manufacturing companies typically manufacture. When they are actually taking up as a contract manufacturer, which means that they have only a few customers and they manufacture for those customers, right?
Not necessarily few customers. Some of them have got a huge number of customers. Basically, B2B business.
Okay.
They are either building to spec or building to print. These are the two options.
Right.
And if you look at our country, majority of the companies fall into that category.
Right.
A huge majority.
Absolutely.
So how do you think those companies can benefit from servitization? What can be done in those companies?
So they can definitely look at, I mean, that is where, in fact, some of the companies where I studied in Mysore, I mean, I wouldn't say that they are contract manufacturers, but they are not very large companies. For example, I mean, a company which is manufacturing gears and things like that. So what they do is, I mean, they have been, they are already providing those services. I mean, for example, the design services. They are trying to provide the design services to the customer. I mean, how they can design their gears and things like that. I mean, they have been doing it, but they have not been monetizing it. So now, I mean, somewhere, I mean, they need to look at how they can monetizing it. I mean, instead of giving it as a free service, I mean, how they can monetize it. So surely, I think, I mean, these companies can also look at services at the value-added services level and at the advisory services level. They'll be able to provide services.
Okay, thank you so much. Prakash, you wanted to say something. Please go on.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, discussion and Q&A and also views. I think in the entire explanation, Dr. Sugant, I think you mentioned more of course is on the manufacturing, focus more on the industry side. I just want to draw an attention towards the consumer products. So here, what's your view on when you say servitization? Because we see when it comes to consumer products or white good products, what we call, fairly you see a kind of, when it comes to services, you will have to, each one is offering services, or when you are buying a product itself, he says, I will give a 2 or 3 years of service free. So do you see that is a good way of doing, or like the consumer products are, I think you have quite a lot of brands. Do you feel integrating and coming under one common umbrella so that the customers, no, they don't have to run behind, like for example, if I have a refrigerator of Samsung and a washing machine of a Whirlpool or any other products, I need to go behind different people to get my things done or services, in terms of the services getting done. So what is your view that whether servitization can be one level looked up beyond this so that the customers are benefited beyond the current level of satisfaction what they have?
Right. Yeah, I think, see, this is one good area where if right now, if you look at it, there are third-party organizations, they provide services of all the products that they have been doing it. At the next level, if you look at it, the companies which are into it, for example, if you look at TVS. So TVS is already there into, they are into automotive. Automotive meaning, they are automotive dealers. In some cities, they are the dealers for Mercedes. In some cities, they are dealers for, Renault. So they are actually into the automotive dealers. They are on a large fleet of trucks are there. Plus also they are into automotive component manufacturers. So now, they have come up with a totally service oriented, the TVS Auto, which they maintain all the third party, vehicles are there. They provide service for that. So that is something which is as a third party. Now, the question what you are asking is, for example, a day might come where the Samsung might take care of your hire washing machine or your Bosch, dishwasher. Everything can be taken care of by Samsung itself. So maybe I think after your initial warranty of about 1 year or 3 years is over, then after that, Samsung will say, okay, fine, it is not only my refrigerator I will take care, I will also take care of your other equipments also. So that day might come, but as of now, it is not happening. See,
so that day is already there, Dr. Sugant. They're already there. If you look at the service providers, these companies which do AMCs.
Right.
For example, in our house, we have got Bosch, IFB Bosch, then Whirlpool, all the three different machines.
Right.
So the service provider does the service for all the three machines.
No, the third party service provider is doing.
Correct. Company service providers are not doing.
For example, if Bosch itself is going to provide service for the Samsung washing machine. So that,
but that
is I think that is where I was thinking about a co-optation. Right. It's nothing but cooperation with the competition. So now, how do you combine these two? Because I think when you're looking at a profitability from the service, obviously you would like to make more and more of your service. Now, when you say we need to do the co-optation, that is where the conflict comes. That if you do that co-optation, my margins will go down, or whatever you're talking about, 25 to 30%. He may not be able to get. But I think, how do you look at this viewpoint? I was just trying to see from that angle.
Correct. But there will be a small blip for that initial period is what I feel. Maybe for the first 1 or 2 years, yes, there may be a blip. And then after that, if you look at it, the market might expand. So I'm sure that, the opportunity will be there for all the players to gain. And then it will become like, who is going to create that differentiator? So if everybody is doing it, if Samsung also is doing it, LG also is doing it, Bosch is also going to do that, then it becomes, I think, who is going to provide you the best service? Is it somebody who is going to provide you the same day service? Somebody is going to provide you a service within 2 hours? Then I think, those differentiators will come in. But overall, the market will 100% it will expand. It will be available for everybody to take.
But I don't know, Prakash, and if I may comment on that, I feel that day will never come, because imagine a situation when Toyota is servicing Hyundai cars, Maruti cars, or Maruti is servicing Toyota cars. That may not happen at all, because there are a lot of differentiating topics. Your own internal company differentiators, which you don't want the competition to see for whatever reason, and that gets exposed. And I don't think in a case of a core product company, from the company perspective, to do that may not really happen, in my opinion, because of that core conflict. That
I do agree. I do see a point there, because whenever you have a technological difference, obviously that the companies will not allow it to happen. But what I'm referring is, more or less, if you see the kind of standardization which is happening in across product portfolios, like for example, if you take a washing machine or a refrigerator or any other thing, I don't think there is any big difference in the design aspect of any of this thing. And there is nothing like something which is a technology which is involved in that. I think so. It's more on the consumer taste which goes up. So from that angle, I was looking at, as you rightly said, on a technological front where you have very totally different, where the OEMs would not like to give it up on certain areas. I think valid point. Thank you.
No, but there again, even in the case where it is fully standardized, the spare parts for a particular product, which has the same dimensions, could be priced differently by each OEM.
Yes.
For example, I remember when we were in Germany, Miele and Bosch had similar identical machines, but Miele spares would cost 30% more than Bosch. So why would Miele give the same service to a Bosch guy, wherein the Bosch guy can offer a Bosch part which is 30% cheaper, so his sales will come down. So that conflict will always be there, in my opinion. But the third parties are already doing it today, where you got third party service. Even in the case of automobiles, there are third party companies who service Toyota as well as Maruti together, right?
Yeah, I think some areas it is there, right?
Even I think Bosch does it. Bosch is having
Bosch service also does that. Bosch service does that. Correct. So any other questions anybody wants to have? Now I open the floor for discussion. Anybody wants to have comment, and please do that. We have another couple of minutes to go. Okay, so otherwise, thanks a lot, Dr. Sugant, for a wonderful time. And I really wish that we could hear you once again with that kind of a e-catalog, where you are talking about what are the concrete opportunities. Then we can say that from that point onwards, we can say these are the opportunities. So each member company can look at what new business opportunity can come from that, because that's the core challenge all of us face.
Yeah, and in fact, I think, it is not without any challenges also. Like, for example, before I wrap up, I think this is one area which you might have seen this advertisement over the past 4-5 months. If you look at it, Maruti Suzuki Subscribe, right? Where they said that you need not pay me. You need not pay an upfront payment. You pay me a monthly amount. It'll include everything, right? It'll include your maintenance. It'll include your insurance. It'll include, everything it is included. You pay me a monthly. Which means that a classic case of a consumer product being converted into a services, but it comes with its own challenge. Which means that now a typical dealer, if you look at it, he gets his money more from services. Now, this is it goes contra to that particular model, because here you'll be able to make more money only if your service cost is going to be kept low. So now I think, whenever we give the car to a service provider, for a automobile service, he will immediately say that, your wiper blade has to be changed. This has to be changed. Some 2-3 standard changes, he will make. But contrary to that, if you're going to make money, which means that you will have to sell less and less pairs. So this is actually, contra to that particular model. So which means that, the incorporating the services is not easy. It will come with its own challenge, especially from the selling point of view. The person who is going to sell, how he is going to sell. A person who is used to selling product, it is very difficult for him to sell services because it is totally two different aspects. So a lot of challenges are there. Yes, maybe I think, we can possibly take it up. Next, I think, as we said, we will come up with some, as what we had suggested, with some sort of a white paper kind of thing. And then we will look at it. If you want, some more discussion we can have on that.
Sure. Thanks a lot. And over to you.
Just a minute, sir. Just a minute. I think before we conclude, I just wanted to ask his view on, while we talked about the servitization in the manufacturing, what's your view on entire healthcare industry itself is a service, so should be service oriented. But do you think that also will further improve? Because nowadays we see a lot of such, in terms, if you're looking at the COVID pandemic itself, how it's going to be evolved, how it is going to change in case of a healthcare industry.
No, healthcare industry, as we said, I think, it is actually a service industry. As it is, it is a service industry. And here now of late, what is happening is there is more and more collaboration with the manufacturers of the equipment, where we saw that, the companies like GE and Siemens and things like that, they try to collaborate more because, typically if you go to Jack Welch Technology Center in Bangalore, there are more medical doctors there. Like for example, there are MDs and MS are there because, they are helping design the product. For example, it can be a robotic surgery, it can be an advanced cath lab, it can be an advanced MRI equipment. So there are doctors who are helping them to design that product. So they are actively involved with the hospitals in training the doctors, in running the equipment, in day-to-day operations. They are running it. So that there is a active collaboration is happening between the equipment manufacturers and the hospitals. It is happening. They are also supporting them in setting it up and then even running it also. So that is happening, yes.
Right. Thanks a lot. I think, thank you, both of you. I think, Mr. Dr. Sugant, for your wonderful insights on the servitization. I think you dealt in depth about this aspect and with a good case studies. And also, I think probably some of us did not have any much insights or things are going to be like this or it's already happening. I think you threw a very good overview of it. And also, I thank Dinakar-san for excellently moderating this session, also asking the relevant and Q&A. I think this kind of thing is a very good session because, we probably are experiencing certain things, but may not be aware of it. So when I think exclusively such sessions are held, and it's good to know about all this various aspects of it. And maybe as we go forward, I think servitization is going to be the norm, looks like. Whatever products you take, I think it is going to come with need services, and it will come with the services. Once again, thank you both of you for
Thank you so much. Thank you.
attending this session. Thank you.
Thank
And
you,
also
sir.
yeah. Over to
Sir,
Rupa-san.
as a token of, sir, may I say?
1 minute to Rupa.
Okay, sir.
In fact, I had put up my contact details also out there. You can please reach out to me. I would be happy to work with any organization. Pro bono. I'm not expecting any income or anything like that. I would definitely, because I would also like to learn. Maybe I think, if any specific organization is looking forward to incorporating the services and how we can take it up together, what are the challenges, how we can overcome it, I would be happy to work with them absolutely on a pro bono basis and then see how we can succeed in incorporating this. This is especially when Mr. Dinkar was talking about contract manufacturers or any SME. If you look at it, I'll be happy to collaborate with them in this initiative as well. So you can reach out. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. As a token of our appreciation, we would like to play a small thank you video. Please do stay with us, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Thanks
sir.
a lot. Thank you, Dinakar-san.
Thank you so much. Thank you.